Welcome painters! Today I bring you a cool video where I will introduce the new range from Vallejo, the Shifters. They are metallic colors that, depending on how the light hits them, change their color. So if you're ready, let's go for it! Here I have this incredible Necron, and first thing is to prime it. I will use glossy black primer since I am using the new The Shifter colors. That's very important. If you are subscribed to the Vallejo channel, you have seen a lot of videos about these colors. Well, I also add some thinner to the primer. I mix well. I will use the Infinity CR+. The needle is 0.15 millimeters and the pressure is at 1.8 bar. Be careful with this primer color because it is slippery, so apply thin layers, let them dry, and then keep repeating. That is because this primer is glossy. That's why it slips while applying thin layers. So I recommend you apply thin layers, let them dry, and then repeat. Here, you can see the final result. I applied about 4 or 5 very thin layers. Now I will apply the base color. I will use dark green tin from the new The Shifters range. I put the color on the blister and add 1 to 2 drops of water. You can use the color straight from the bottle, although if you are using a 0.15 millimeter needle, it may clog the airbrush, so I recommend you add a little bit of thinner. So I put the color inside the airbrush, test it out, and apply thin layers. I tilt the figure a bit, and the airbrush too, so the paint hits on the upper parts and doesn't cover the holes and recesses. And so we will only highlight the highest areas. And as I always say, thin layers without any hurry. You can see that as I turn the figure, the color changes depending on how the light hits it. A lot of things can be done with these colors. Here you can see the final result, how tones change. Now I will use another new color from The Shifters to vary the tone. These colors can be mixed together to achieve a large number of combinations. I will apply this one to vary the armor tone a bit and create some different shades. The same, I add 1 or 2 drops to the color, mix well, and put it in. Next, I will apply it on certain parts, for example, on this area near the face. A bit on this plate. We're playing, fearless. As you can see, it blends great. I will put a bit on the upper part of the breastplate. Notice how a slight movement varies the tone. Here you can see the final result. Check out what amazing green tones. And now I will apply orange-violet to some parts of the armor. The same process. I put it on the blister, add 1 to 2 drops of thinner, stir them well, and put inside. I tilt the figure a bit to paint these things that look like tails. Then, by tilting the figure a little, the spray will only hit the highest areas, and the deepest parts will remain unpainted. In future steps, I will add more definition with the brush, but now it's airbrush time. Look closely in the box. I press down and drag back just a little bit on the trigger so I get a thin and precise jet of paint. Also, look at the position of the airbrush. It is tilted a little bit too. I apply thin layers, as always. Now I'm going to paint this thing, which is a sort of loincloth, which this Necron has. As you can see, using these new colors is super easy. And don't forget, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. Here you can see the final result. The armor has lots of tones already. Green, orange, all the colors. With aluminium from Model Air, I will add some highlights. See, I said some highlights, because if we add too many highlights, we will spoil the previous work, since the shifters change color depending on how the light hits. So if we add too much highlighting, then we will cover that amazing characteristic of these colors. So I'm going to add some small highlights to the most important parts. For example, on this leg plate, I will apply some small highlights. The other plate, on the other leg, the same thing. We press very little so the paint goes directly to this zone. On this part, close to the head, we also add some soft layers to highlight it. I never will get tired of saying very precise movements. I mean soft touches to highlight. On the forearm, the same. We do not want to lose the characteristics of the shifters, so we highlight only very important parts and in very small areas. On the shoulder pads, the same. You can see how the highlights make it change. The shifter colors remain, and the highlights with aluminium. I will highlight a bit on this forearm as well. On the foot a little, too. And also on the weapon. I tilt the figure a little so the spray hits just on the edge of the weapon. I look for places where more light is needed. I mean, add a highlight and take the figure and see. Here you can see the final result. This Necron is changing and getting stronger for battle. The airbrush work is already done, and from now on I will use the brush. And first of all, I will add all the colors to the wet palette. I will use black wash from the wash range and black from model color. Why do I use the black from the wash range? Because this paint is thinner, which allows it to flow better into the grooves. And the model color black, this color is stronger, which will help me mark the figure better. I will also use a combination of both in a mixture. Depending on the groove or recess, I will use one or the other. For example, on these ribs, I will mix some black wash with black from model color, and I'm playing. Or both colors. For instance, on the shoulder pad, I use more black wash, as I will not mark it too much, so it will help me further define that area. This process is labor-intensive, but it's worth it. But if you think about it, the airbrushing, how long did that take us? About 8 minutes? It was super fast. This mini is a game level, so we have to save as much time as possible. For example, here on the loincloth, I use black wash. I apply a wash and this paint enters all the crevices. Look here, on the helmet, the same. On the eye, the same. Here you can see the final result. How all the holes and recesses are defined. And it's super simple. Now it's Glazes time. You can see I am going to use green, sepia ink, violet ink, and red wash. I combine all these colors to apply tones to the armor. For instance, I will use green on this tiny robot. I take some paint, apply it, and then I move it. So, we will vary the little robot's tones more. I want the little robot to have more green, so I add more glazes. If you look, it's very simple. Now I will add red on the lower parts, since green and red contrast very well. So it's not necessary to add black to the lower parts. I glazed with red and it already contrasts very well. And as I always say, apply a glaze, let it dry, and then keep repeating. You can use the hairdryer to speed it up. If you notice the paint takes too much time to dry, give it a few passes with the hairdryer, and then continue painting. For example, inside I will use sepia ink because it is a bit reddish and looks like rust, so it goes perfectly inside the little robot. And look closely. I load a little bit of sepia ink, rest it on the surface, and then move it around to get it inside all the recesses. Here I am adding some violet ink on the legs. And you can see how the tones change. So, you will have an amazing Necron. For example, I will add more green to the weapon, like a magic weapon. So I add more green ink layers. For instance, on these kinds of tails, I play with the sepia ink and even a little violet, so I get some different tones on these 4 tails. Here you can see the final result. By applying just 4 colors, the whole armor changes. It combines very well with the new The Shifters colors. You see that the tone changes depending on how the light hits. With white and a bit of black-green, I will paint the light balls. I add a little bit of black-green, since it will help me to cover the whole surface better. I recommend you paint one layer, let it dry, and then repeat. This way, we will cover these surfaces very well. As you can see, the paint is a little thicker. And rest and drag to cover properly. Here you can see the final result. All the light balls with the base color. With the color green fluorescent, I will add glazes. I will also add a little black-green to darken it more. Simple. I make a mix and glaze the light balls. And as you can see, I take a good amount of paint, put it on the surface, and then drag it. I also move it more to the edges. Pay close attention to the movement. I rest and then move it to fill the edges, leaving the upper part lighter. This fluorescent color is perfect, since it gives us a lot of saturation, a lot of vividness. And it also contrasts well with the armor colors. I repeat it again. I apply a glaze, I keep moving it, and focus more on the edges. To get more fluorescent color there. I do the same with the weapon. I glaze and reinforce on the recesses. I want this weapon to be luminous, so I glaze, let it dry, and then keep repeating as many layers as we want. Here you can see the final result. See how the fluorescent color gives us such a cool result? Very bright. We need sunglasses. I will highlight in the middle of the balls with white. So I take some paint and apply it right in the center. But what happens? White does not give me luminosity. Which color gives me luminosity? Yellow. So I will mix yellow-green with a little white to add luminosity and make these light balls stand out more. So I mix and apply this highlight right in the center. And you can see the lights are more noticeable. Write down this trick. This yellow is great. Here you can see that it stands out more. I will outline the edges of the armor with silver from Model Air to add more definition to all the plates. I take a little bit of paint and outline everything. Don't need to add any water to this color. The model air range is already more diluted than normal, so we load a little bit on the brush and just outline. Use the side of the brush to make outlining easier for us. So be patient and outline all the edges. We also focus on the most important edges. This mini is to play with, so just a few layers on some edges will be enough to get good results. As you can see, the process is very simple. Following all the steps, you will paint Necrons in an assembly line. I outline this leg a bit more, so I will get more definition. Also on this sort of loincloth. Notice they are soft touches to draw the eye and achieve the definition we are looking for. Also, the rear part, I tilt the brush. I make a kind of dry brush to speed up the process. And here you can see the final result. By outlining the edges, we get more definition. And now all that's left painting is the base. I will use gold brown. I put it on the palette and I will use a dry brush technique. So I take a sheet of paper to unload the brush. This technique is super fast and easy to use. I will dry brush the rocks. I took this color because it contrasts perfectly with the figure. It is a yellow tone, so it will stand out very well. As you can see, it's just wham bam thank you ma'am, and that's it, painted rocks. I will also glaze them, a red glaze with sepia to darken it a bit. I add some more, very fast. You don't need to detail everything. It is tabletop level, and it has to be ready for battle. Here you can see the final result. Last step, we are almost finished. Now we have to texture the base. I will use this product from Vallejo, Brown Earth. I suggest you use an old brush to apply this product. Take a little bit of this product and apply to the surface. As you can see, it's easy to use. Keep dragging and covering the whole surface. When finished, clean the brush only with water. It is a very fast way to texture our bases. And here you can see the final result once dried. If you liked the video, and if you want me to do more tabletop level videos, let me know in the comments. I loved it, and I hope it will help you. This Necron is ready for battle. Did you like how the figure looked? Yes? For those of you who are interested, here is a link to this figure on eBay. Also, if you liked this video, share it with your friends, hit the like button, and ring the bell to be notified of new videos. And don't forget to click on the video description to see all the products I used. If you live in Spain, you can get all the products at Goblin Trader, in France at Hobby Shop, and in the United Kingdom at Element Games. Guys, see you in the next video!